code, we want to read a number and print its factorial. A factorial is basically the multiplication result of that number counting backward to 1. For example, if the user enters 5, 5 factorial is the result of 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 and times 1, 120. Or if the user enters 7, 7 factorial is 7 times 6, 7 times 5 until times 1, and this is the result of 7 factorial. So that program just needs to read a counter, read a number, and then count backward, and then every time multiply that number that is generated to the previous total multiplication result. Let's see the code. Factorial exercise. First thing that we need to do is to initialize a variable to store our factorial results. And that variable is going to be updated inside of a loop with the multiplication results. Because it's multiplication, the initial value of factorial must be 1, because any number times 1, we get the number back. 1 is neutral in multiplication result, like 0 that is neutral in a summation result. So let's call this variable fact, and it's initialized by 1. Then we read the number that we intended to be calculate its factorial. Here the number should be integer because we don't have a factorial for a floating point number. For example, we don't have factorial of 5.2, let's say. So we are reading integer this time. Enter the number. Now we can enter the loop. So our loop needs to count backwards until it gets to 1. It needs to count from the number that the user enters backward to 1. But actually, 1 is not basically necessary in this case, because anything times 1 gives you that number back. So number 1 is neutral. So your condition doesn't need to be number greater than 0. It's just number greater than 1. Both cases you get the same result, but you're just forcing your loop to count one additional repetition for no reason. Inside the loop, we calculate the factorial, and again, to refresh your memory, this line of code is fact assigned by fact times num. So again, these two are exactly the same. And then we decrement the number decrement. We keep doing this until this number becomes 1. Then we exit the loop, and then we can print this fact. Okay, let's give it a try. Let's say we want to calculate 5 factorial, 120, 7 or 6 factorial, 720, 7 factorial is 5040. Now, if you want to print like the message, like for example, like this, 7 factorial, then we need to make a copy of this number before we modify it inside our code. So we can just say, for example, original, that is assigned by num, and then we can change our message in here. We can say For example, num plus this. Let me take this out. Okay. And yes, this is because we're getting an error because we're trying to concatenate an integer with a string, and obviously we can't do that, so we need to convert this to string. Before we do that,